Instead of Barbenheimer, we need to talk about Mission Impossible Oppenheimer. Hi folks, welcome back. I'm KAYAOＤLU. This video is a first for me. Instead of discussing only current events or history, I'll be adding another passion of mine to this one: the movies. Two feature films have rocked the theaters this summer: Barbie and Oppenheimer. Despite how the two movies are so different in look, feel, and their subject matters, or perhaps because they are so different, the internet, in all its wisdom, came up with a tongue-in-cheek portmanteau term for them: Barbenheimer. That we can think of these two very different live-action pictures based on a line of kids' toys, and the biopic of the scientist who is considered the father of the atomic bomb as somehow connected. But instead of Barbenheimer, it's the Tom Cruise-led Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Oppenheimer that I want to discuss together today. Because the two movies inherit a fundamental warning to humanity. When it comes to revolutionary new technologies, especially those that can be weaponized, be afraid. Be very afraid. While the tech from Oppenheimer is obviously nuclear energy, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 focuses on artificial intelligence. Now, before we go into Mission Impossible Oppenheimer, as I call it, please click the like and subscribe buttons below and write your thoughts in the comments. I'd also be grateful if you could share this video with your friends so I can grow my channel. First, let's go into a no-spoiler overview of the two movies. Dead Reckoning is the 7th entry in the Mission Impossible series that Tom Cruise has been leading since 1996, and it sports an ensemble cast as always. Mr. Cruise is back as the superstar agent Ethan Hunt, who is out to save the world once again. This time, Hunt's mission, which he chooses to accept of course, is to make sure that a self-aware, super artificial intelligence system called the Entity does not fall into the wrong hands because it's already pulling strings in the physical world through an old nemesis of Hunt. As with all previous Mission Impossible movies, this one is packed with heavy-hitting action sequences, hilarious moments, and some sad and even haunting scenes. And the movie ends in such a way that it makes me really look forward to Dead Reckoning Part 2, which will be released in June 2024. Now Oppenheimer. A biopic of the American scientist J. Robert Oppenheimer, the movie stars Cillian Murphy in the title hero, as well as an ensemble cast. The director is none other than Christopher Nolan, arguably the greatest film author of our times. The movie is based on the 2006 book, the Pulitzer Prize-winning American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer, written by best-selling author Kai Bird and the late Martin J. Sherwin, who was a leading historian of the nuclear age. The movie deals with the life and times of Oppenheimer, starting with his earlier struggle while he is pursuing his master's and doctorate in Europe. The first act of the film shows how taxing a doctorate can be on the mind and on the soul. There's a scene in the movie where the young Oppenheimer poisons the apple of a professor who mocks him in front of his classmates. And I thought I had wild thoughts when I was doing my doctorate. Anyway, after his European days, we see the young Robert back in America teaching physics at Berkeley and hanging out with other pioneering scientists and activists. It's the 1930s, and so socialism and communism look like appealing alternatives to American capitalism that's still trying to recover from the Great Depression. And when compared to rising fascism in Europe, leftist ideas look even more appealing to young folks. As war breaks out in Europe, Oppenheimer and many of his lefty friends shift their focus and decide to cooperate with the US government to build the atom bomb, which they suspect Germany is close to developing. Thank God, of course, that does not turn out to be the case because a certain German leader with a funny mustache and who was also rabidly anti-Semitic, he had forced many of the leading nuclear scientists in those days, who happened to be Jewish, to escape Europe for America. Now let's get to the weaponizing new technologies bit. The general story behind Oppenheimer gets repeated in many popular and professional works of history, but it bears repeating to understand the cautionary tale about how good intentions could lead to really bad outcomes. In December 1938, German scientists carry out the first nuclear fission reaction, proving that the atom could be split and that could release lots and lots of energy. Soon, the famed German-American scientist, Albert Einstein, is approached by his fellow emigre physicist colleagues, and they send a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. pointing out that the Nazis may be developing a uranium-based weapon that could kill people in ways much more powerful compared to conventional weapons, and even the chemical weapons that were used during World War I. So when the US gets dragged into World War II in late 1941, the so-called Manhattan Project is greenlit with the aim to build the atom bomb. And Army General Leslie Groves, played by Matt Damon in the movie, is put in charge. One of the first people whom Groves recruits is Oppenheimer, who oversees a critical part of the Manhattan Project, the weapons labs in New Mexico. 2 years, millions of work hours, and $1 billion later, Oppenheimer's team finally tests the bomb in July 1945. In the so-called Trinity test, the first atomic weapon in history is detonated successfully. Haha, I lied about the spoiler alert. The bomb worked. In all seriousness, Oppenheimer is so struck by what he and his comrades have created that he quotes the Hindu holy text, Bhagavad Gita, in which one of the gods says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Although the test comes 2 months too late, because Nazi Germany had surrendered in May, President Harry Truman decides to use the bomb against Japan for its refusal to surrender. And use the bomb the Americans do in August 1945 on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Oppenheimer, like many of his fellow nerds who worked on the atom bomb, developed second thoughts and moral qualms about the bomb's use on civilians. But they can no longer control what they have created. In June 1949, Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union tests its own atomic weapon. A few years after that, both the US and the Soviets develop the hydrogen bomb, which is even more powerful than the fission-based bomb that had come into existence under Oppenheimer's watch. By the mid-1970s, both the Americans and the Soviets would amass about 30,000 nuclear warheads each, and about half a dozen other countries would develop nuclear weapons during that time. In the latter parts of the movie, depicting the late 1940s and 1950s, we see Oppenheimer struggle with his conscience because of his role in opening the nuclear floodgates, as well with a US government and former allies who have turned against him for his past ties to communists and communist sympathizers. And although Oppenheimer is mostly rehabilitated by the administrations of John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson in the 1960s, the movie shows Oppenheimer living his final days with his family, somewhat sad and somewhat happy. As for Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, it's pretty much set in the present or perhaps the very near future. The Entity is an AI system that can not only think for itself, but it can eavesdrop on people's conversations and communications, and can even bend reality to trick a person into doing its bidding. At the beginning of the movie, there's a scene in which the Entity tricks military personnel into thinking that they're being attacked by an adversary, so they attack that adversary. But it turns out that that enemy wasn't even there. Throughout the movie, you see the Entity messing with the minds of people this way. It is quite the mind F. And Dead Reckoning really pulls you into this basic conundrum. Can you trust reality? Can you trust what you see? And what will happen to the Entity if it gets reprogrammed by the bad guys, or if Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt gets to it first? Handle with care is the message. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning and Oppenheimer are a warning for all of us. While only a select few possess the knowledge and ability to develop the bomb, and thank God the endless cycle of nuclear proliferation that people feared in the early Cold War years never materialized, we still live in fear of the bomb. Many good Hollywood movies, including at least 2 Mission Impossible movies, use the bad guys with nukes trope in their plots. And rightly so. Nukes are the only thing that could wipe out not only humanity, but almost all life forms on the planet. Of course, the nuclear age didn't just give us the bomb. It also gave us nuclear power plants, which, when handled safely, energized the homes and businesses of billions of people, notwithstanding tragedies such as Chernobyl and Fukushima. In fact, some experts argue that nuclear energy is one of the better alternatives if we wish to clamp down on our release of greenhouse gases and slow down climate change, because nuclear energy does not produce carbon dioxide, CO2. So how does the bomb relate to AI? How do Oppenheimer and Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning go together? Well, one of the obvious answers is the Terminator series, when an AI system called Skynet, Genesis in later movies, becomes self-aware, identifies human beings as the greatest threat to itself and the planet, and decides to attack humans with nuclear weapons. Most people die within hours. 90% are dead in a matter of weeks. I still use the two famed scenes in Terminator 2 and 3 to show how a nuclear apocalypse would play out in my classes to scare my students about nuclear war, not the exams or the assignments. Although that gives me a few ideas. Anywho, even without a Skynet with bombs scenario, we should be careful about AI, especially in the long term. Many more people possess a good understanding and the skills to develop AI systems in today's world than those who developed nukes back then or could develop nukes today. True, most AI systems as we currently use them are mere chatbots that, to quote OpenAI ChatGPT, quote, use natural language processing to create human-like conversational dialogue, unquote, and some fascinating visual arts. But right now, AI can only do what we tell it to do. But there's already a serious problem with AI systems such as ChatGPT, that when answering pretty straightforward math and textual questions, it starts making stuff up and gives erroneous answers. I once asked ChatGPT for my own bio, and it made me graduate from universities I never attended, and an expert of subject matters where I don't know shoe from shinola. So imagine if an AI system were programmed to trick people out of malice, to hurt them. If someone were to figure out a way to teach AI how to learn, how to act, not only to be factually wrong, but to be morally wrong. In other words, what if someone were to code an AI system that could make its life's mission to deceive us or worse, attack our critical infrastructure, or access and alter our personal data, or something even worse than that? Dead Reckoning gives a very good sense of what such a world might look like. We are heading toward a scary new world, folks. Then again, who knows, just as the worst of our fears about the nuclear age have not come to pass, I don't think we will see a nuclear war in the near future, knock on wood. Maybe we will also manage this AI thing somewhat wisely. Of course, to do that, we should start thinking about binding legal principles comparable to the 1968 Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty that administers the use of peaceful nuclear energy while banning the spread of nuclear weapons. But that is for another video. All right, that's it for me. What do you think? Have you seen Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Oppenheimer? What about Barbie? Which I hope to discuss in a separate video. And who knows, maybe I'll figure out a way to expand my discussion here for something like Mission Impossible Barbenheimer. Bring all three movies together. Anyway, what do you think these movies say about our past, present, and future? Should we be worried? Yes, no? Please write in the comments below. If you have any questions, write those in the comments as well. I'd love to hear from you and interact with you. And if you like this video, please click the like and subscribe buttons below and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching, folks. I'll see you soon.